Let's just get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, Unlock Your Team's Potential with Data-Driven Resource Planning. Today, we are covering our Tempo Planner solution. So let's get on with the session. So hello, my name is Olof Christiansdottir. I am the Director of Marketing here at Tempo, and we have a great team presenting with me here today. We have Christopher Castine, our Director of Product Management, and Lisa Bracegirdle, our Solution Architect, and then Susan Wu is on hand for our Q&A session. She is our product expert. Now, would you all mind introducing yourselves, starting with Chris?
Yeah, thank you so much, Olaf. Christopher Castine, as mentioned, Director of Product Management, So I oversee effectively all of the Tempo products. So today, of course, being Planner, but also Timesheet and Cost Tracker and many others. So very excited to be here and looking forward to the webinar. So with that, I'll pass the floor to Lisa.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Lisa Bracegirdle, and I am a Solution Architect here at Tempo. And I look forward to showing you a demo of Tempo Planner.
Perfect. And that leaves us with Susan.
Hi, my name is Susan Wu. I'm a product expert in Tempo, and today I will be answering all your questions. So if there's anything, please do ask them. Back to all.
Perfect. Thank you all for introducing yourself and being here with us today. We're going to go ahead and stop sharing our cameras so that you can focus on the content of the session here today. And we will start by taking a look at today's agenda. Now, we'll take a brief look at some of the challenges of planning and the limits of Jira, and then Lisa will take you through a demonstration of Planner in action, and Chris will follow up with an overview of the latest feature the product has to offer and some upcoming new features, and we'll round up the session as usual with a Q&A. Well, let's kick off things by looking at planning. Now, you are here because you want to improve your planning in Jira. But it's helpful to understand that as humans, we are pretty terrible at planning to begin with. And there are good reasons for it. There is the planning fallacy. We plan for the best case scenario and we expect somehow reality to follow. But as we know, reality is pretty unpredictable and you can't always, it doesn't always go as planned for sure. We also tend to have a natural optimism and expect projects and tasks to go smoothly. Now, again, the reality is usually a totally different story. Now, one reason for why reality doesn't always go according to plan is that we don't always realize the complexity of the project at hand, and thus resulting in a scope creep. We've all been there for sure. And lastly, we all have a tendency to want to please our manager. So we plan the project to take as long as we're expected to, instead of how long it will actually take. And this is called motivated reasoning. Now, Jira helps in part to solve some of these problems, but there's still limitations. There is a lack of overview of the current commitments your team has. You cannot assign issues to unnamed resources. You cannot search for users based on their role or their skill. There's no ability to visualize the availability in upcoming work, therefore very hard for you to plan if you need more resources or more projects. There's a lack of option to manage teams and shared resources across teams, and there's no cross-organizational view. So you don't really know what capacity you have, how many new projects you can take on, and so forth. And that's where Tempo Planner comes in. So before we go into a demonstration to show you Tempo Planner in action, we want to hear from the audience. So we're going to launch the first poll of the day. We want to know, what is your biggest planning challenge in Jira? And this is, you have to select one choice. So remember to think about, what is your biggest challenge? Is it that there are double entries? Is it the risk of human error? Maybe it's the lack of a complete overview. There's no real-time overview, or you're missing the approval process. Maybe it's something else. So let us know, what is your biggest planning challenge that you currently face in Jira? So what is the biggest planning challenge that people here today are facing? Is the lack of an overview. 42% select that option. And the next one is something else, but a real-time overview is also mentioned a lot. So hopefully we'll be able to show you how Tempo Planner can give you a visualization and an overview in real time, nonetheless, of the availability of your resources. And we'll move on to a demonstration. I will actually hand it over to Lisa for the demonstration. Yep. Yeah, perfect.
Great. Okay, thanks so much. In case you didn't know, Tempo is one of the top app vendors in the Atlassian marketplace with more than 20,000 customers. And I just wanted to let you know that we offer 4 different apps that integrate with Jira and are sold separately. They are on cloud, Tempo Timesheets, Tempo Planner, and Tempo Cost Tracker, whereas on-prem we have Tempo Timesheets, Tempo Planner, and Tempo Budgets. Now let me share my screen.
Perfect. There it is.
Great. In today's Tempo Planner webinar, I'll show you how you can turn your Jira issues and projects into executable planning timelines, so you can quickly find available team members and maximize how they are being used. In other words, you can see how busy your teams are and see who is working on what, which is ideal for company transparency. But first, let's start with the setup. When you install Tempo Planner into your Jira instance on cloud, in the left navigation panel, you'll see the following icons available to you: Tempo Planner, Reports, Teams, the apps, Tempo Settings, and our Tempo Help Center, where you can find documentation and our great YouTube videos to show how to get things done. Let's go here in Tempo Settings, where we will need to define first the Jira user's capacity hours. This is configured in the workload and holiday schemes. So we'll select the workload scheme, where we will look at first the default workload scheme. Here, it's been configured for our Jira users to work Monday to Friday, 8 hours a day. And the members are listed in here. If you need to configure an additional workload scheme for part-time members, or even perhaps you have an office in another country and their weekends are actually Friday and Saturday, you can configure this type of workload scheme as well. Simply add the correct Jira user into each scheme that you configure. The same applies over here to holiday schemes. You can configure many different holiday schemes. Just align your Jira users into the correct one. With holiday schemes, you can create your fixed holidays as well as your floating holidays that change from year to year. Once this setup is complete, you need to go to Tempo Teams icon, which is a core feature that comes with all of our Tempo apps. It's important to note that the foundation of Tempo Planner is around this Teams icon. So let's set up a team. Here is where you can simply create your team by giving your team a name, indicating the team lead, and click Create. Your overview page will show you all the list of teams. And if we go into one, let me show you what you can see here. Taylor is the team lead of this development team. Here is the list of members that have already been added. You can add a member one at a time, or even bulk add members from your Jira user groups. If I click on one of the members created, you can see that we can also align a role with a member. We have optional fields where you can indicate the joining and leaving date. And you can now add skills, which is a much anticipated feature that's now available that can also be viewed on the resource overview page, which I'll show you in a few minutes. By adding skills to a user profile, this helps to match talent to project needs or even identify shortage of required skills. You can also create a generic resource in a team, which you can see down here, and plan on this unnamed resource when you're not sure who will be doing the work. Additionally, in this team, you can see the links to the different Jira projects that they're working on, as well as at the top right here, we have a permissions tab where, again, focus simply on this team. The team lead, Taylor, has all the permissions for Tempo Planner. She can view everyone's plans, even manage them, or approve plans. Whereas in the following column, you can see the member column here, where the team lead has decided not to give any of the members permissions. However, if you so choose and you would like them to see each other's plans, you simply click on this button where it says View Plans. By doing so, now the members can see each other's plans in Tempo Planner, as well as being able to see this type of information in Tempo reports. If you need other levels of people to be able to see this team's plans, you can simply add a permission role in this view, give it a name, and then add the user that you would like to view plans and perhaps be the backup to approve plans. So now let's go into Tempo Planner. Here on the resource planning overview page, you can see all the resources, their plans, and availability in one place. This is what we call real-time visibility. And this view also helps team leads understand if they need to hire additional staff. For today's use case, let's say I'm the team lead of the development team. So I'll go to the filter here, and I will select my team. However, note that you can also filter by users, their roles, generic resources, and even skills. Right now, I'll pull up my team, the development team. This way, I get a view of the Jira users that are part of my team. With the date picker here, I can pull up the view that I want to see. So I would like to see from the last week of April until the end of May. And if I scroll to the right, I'm able to see the weeks into the upcoming weeks. The colorful scheme helps you with a quick overview to see which of your resources are either under allocated, perfectly allocated for their day, or even over allocated with the red lines. The plans under their avatar allow you to see exactly what they're planned on. And this column shows the available hours. What this means, if I close the plans once again, is we're able to see in this team who has the most available hours still to be planned on. There are 3 different ways you can plan using Tempo Planner. The first way, let me open up Bob, is we can click on one of the dates and open up the plan time dialog box. Here you can see we're going to plan on Bob, and you can plan either on an issue level or on a project level. To plan on an issue level, you will search for your issues in your Jira instance, select the project you're working on, and select the issue. We're going to plan Bob on May the 9th, and we can indicate we would like him to work on this issue for 3 hours and click Plan Time. Now I've added the plan to Bob, and we can still see that we are under allocated for his day, as we are still seeing a yellow line. Another example rather, I can block a series of dates, and this time perhaps I want to plan on a project level. I select project box and I find the project I'd like to plan Bob on and indicate that I pretty much would like him to work on this all day for these 3 days. In doing so, I know for a fact that Bob is also on another team. So I want to reach out to his other team lead, Taylor, and send a request to her to ensure that I can get Bob for the full days, and click plan time. So I plan from May 11th until the 13th against this project, the AKA project, and we can see there's a yellow dot because the plan still is not approved. We're waiting for Taylor's approval. As we can see, we've overloaded his day as well with the red lines. But once Taylor approves the plan, just as an example, and I update the card, then we can see that the plan has been approved with the green dot. Another way you can plan using Tempo Planner is with the issue side panel. The issue side panel can be configured by every single user simply by going to the cogwheel, and you can pull in the projects that are relative to you and that you're currently working on. You can even pull in Jira filters. All of this will be shown down here in the column, and you can simply drag and drop to have the top 3 in bold here. When you have your top 3 projects at the top, when you leave this view, you will see that they are represented here by your top 3 tabs. So let's say now I want to plan some time against this AKA project on Aglo. To plan time using the issue side panel, you can simply drag and drop the card over to a date field and let go. Here you can see that the plan I dropped has filled it in for the entire day. And if that's not what you want, you can simply click on the plan card and edit it to indicate how many hours you would like Aglo to work on this plan. Just like so. Another way to plan time is with the import from Jira feature. So how this is done, when you're in your Jira issue view and you assign an issue to someone, indicate the due date, and set the time needed to complete the task in the original estimate field. When these 3 fields are fulfilled in your Jira issue view, then they will push into this import plan window right here. As a team lead, I can review all the plans that have been created in Jira and decide which ones I want to push into Tempo Planner. So for example, if I would like to push this plan, the Mac-11, that's assigned to Bob, I simply select the box on the left and click import. It says success, the plan was imported. I'll go over to Bob's avatar and click on it. And I can see that the plan was imported by this icon right here, the import from Jira icon. That's how fast and easy it is to use this feature, import from Jira. I want to show you a few other features available to you in this resource planning view. You are able to click on settings and show skills. So skills is a new feature available, as I showed you, in Tempo Teams, where you can add a skill to your user. And when you show skills, they will be viewable for you right here. Another feature I'd like to show you is with regards to our calendar integration. So in Tempo Planner, you can integrate your Google Calendar or Office 365 calendar. This feature is available in Tempo Planner only when the enhanced calendar integration is turned on in Tempo Timesheets first. The calendar integration is very helpful. You see a compressed line under Gudrun, which shows the amount of time each day that has been added to her schedule. This is helpful so that when Gudrun or a team lead plans during the week, they are aware of how many hours are already planned in her schedule with the calendar events integration. Another handy feature is you can export right here on the resource planning page to launch a capacity report. This is where you can check on your resources. Let me try to find the, this is where you can check on your resources, their planned versus available capacity in hours or full-time equivalent data. So if I scroll to the left, we can see the capacity in hours, any calendar events, and available hours quickly in this view. Now let's go to our reports module to query on data based on your needs after you've planned in the resource planning overview page. With Tempo Planner, you get access to our plan time report. Let's click on the plan time wizard and open it up. Here you will see you can group by various hierarchy from Jira. And in this example, I would like to group by projects, user, and let's grab the plans. I want to select from the date picker the period of time that I want to create my report around. And I want to see how I've planned for my development team. Once having done this, you can see that because I'm filtering by the development team, I'm actually pulling up all of the different projects that they are working on, not simply one project. If you want to include information just on one project, of course, then you can filter by the project name as well. In the overview section, we can also launch a chart. This chart is helpful. It's filtering still by my team, showing all the different projects that have been planned and the number of hours in this bar chart. Below is the report that I showed you without. So I'll remove the chart. And now we're back to this view where we can see the planned hours, the planned capacity, which means that Paco here is working 16% of his time is planned towards the AB Sprint project. The required field is showing you the number of hours from our workload scheme that we started off this demo with. So Gudrun and Paco are required to work 200 hours during this time period here. When you create a report that you like, you can save it, and it's shareable with your colleagues that have permissions to view the team, as well as you can export all this data to Excel, CSV, even a printable view. Once I save this report and go back to the reports module, you can find the save reports down here. And as well, I want to point out that if you have Tempo timesheets and then subscribe to Tempo Planner, you also get access to our plan versus actual report. You can group by various items like projects, teams, roles, users, etc. And in this particular example, if I scroll down, we're able to see all the different projects in my Jira instance, again, relative to the date picker, and we can see the planned time hours versus the actual log time. Again, available only if you subscribe to Tempo Timesheets and Tempo Planner. In summary, Tempo Planner helps project managers, team leads, as well as individual users optimize their resource capacity management. It's a single enterprise-wide source of truth with real-time visibility into each resource instead of using multiple spreadsheets. If you're interested in evaluating Tempo Planner, we do offer a free 30-day trial license on Atlassian Marketplace. I hope you found this demo today helpful. Over to you, Chris.
That was great. I think I learned a few things as well. All right. You should be able to take it away now, Chris.
All right. Thank you so much, Olaf and Lisa. That was a fantastic demo. So for today, as you guys can see, we do we're kind of continually releasing new features in this product. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was one of the new features that we are working on for this year, which is around team planning. So Lisa kind of alluded a little bit to that, and I'll be getting into that in a little bit more detail. So as I was mentioning, I just wanted to kind of go through one of the features that our team is working on for the remainder of the year, which is around team planning. So this is a new feature we will be bringing in into the resource view. So effectively the view that Lisa was walking you guys through. However, in this case, of course, in Lisa's case, she was really getting into a lot of the details around the resources and planning those resources. And in terms of team planning, as the name would suggest, we are kind of planning at a higher level, planning on higher level constructs. So around the team itself. And as well, kind of mid to long-term planning. So, if we think about resource planning, tends to be a little bit more shorter term, right? If we're actually planning individuals on specific dates and specific times. In the case of team planning, we're talking about a mid to longer term horizon. So in this case, as you can see just from the mock-up, I have my team selected. So in this case, the Avengers team. This is a team, again, as Lisa was mentioning, defined in the Tempo team space. So again, as an end user, the bar on the left there is fully loaded with all of the applications. This is not kind of the typical view of an end user. Teams and config and some of the more complex things are more on the admin side. But again, in this case, we are planning on a team. So the Avengers team, you can see there. As I mentioned, we're also planning on higher level constructs. So in this case, an epic. I'll talk a little bit about the release plan around this and some of the things we will be planning on. The first thing was we will be starting with planning on epics directly, and then from there, probably into Tempo projects, potentially things like initiatives and that type of thing, but definitely want to kind of gear this feature towards, again, higher sort of level constructs that are out there. So this is the plan dialog, as you saw in the demo. Just a couple other, fields at the bottom there, start date, end date, expected, the plan time, sort of the expected criteria that you would expect to creating a plan. Just a final note, it is an optional feature. So we do have a lot of clients that are planning more in sort of in agencies or in consulting firms. So it's really about, planning out the weeks of those consultants. So it's a little bit more low level. And of course, in this case, this is a little bit more typical Scrum or Agile planning in those types of environments. So it's fully optional. You don't have to use it if this is not a use case that meets your needs. So here's the outcome of the plan we just created through the modal, right? So again, you can see the Avengers there, and effectively they've been assigned this epic, which is this onboarding epic that you see here. All right. So in addition, again, back to Lisa's demo. So in addition to, of course, being able to plan directly in Planner on Teams, we will be leveraging the import feature as well. So of course, Lisa presented importing items for specific resources. And in this case, well, it would be for the team, right? So here you could see the same epic there, the user onboarding epic. Pertinent fields are populated, of course, probably the most important one being the tempo team field. And then if you import this, a plan or a team plan would be automatically created in Tempo Planner. Another note there to mention is currently that feature is in product, so not for Tempo teams, but for planning on resources. The idea, of course, a lot of teams are self-managed. They create their own tickets, and you can effectively bring those into Planner for visualization. You can import new tickets. You can do updates as well. So if things change, you could bring that data in. And in conjunction with this feature development, we will be bringing bi-directional capabilities. So in other words, being able to pass data in both directions. So again, today, it's really from Jira to Tempo Planner. And in the future, we will also support Planner to Jira as well. And again, that is kind of a very standard use case. Some of you might be familiar with that design pattern or that functionality. It's found in lots of other products out there that perform similar tasks to this. All right, so just in terms, as I was mentioning, if you think about, certainly internally at Tempo, we do use Scrum and Agile. Myself, I mean, being a product person, planning at a higher level, so having a roadmap, planning out those large features. Typically, those features are described in Jira as epics. So in this case, again, we have our user onboarding. For the actual decomposition and breakdown of that epic, that is handled by the team, right? So these are self-managed teams. We have Andrea and Brady and Leslie and Morris here, effectively taking that epic, working with product owners to decompose that and effectively sequence it in the best way possible. So again, getting away from some of the older top-down methodology, but effectively, starting top-down and going from bottom up and meeting in the middle. So again, we can, from my previous mockups, we can just look at this and I'm just showing one team here with effectively one epic, but of course this team could be working on multiple epics, and we'll see in the future as we move forward here, like different teams can also be presented on the screen as well. But effectively what I just wanted to show here is the ability to expand on the work that team is doing. So if there is a need for that, well, what is that user onboarding really about? We want to kind of do a deeper dive. You could expand and see those different user stories or different Jira tasks that make up that epic as well. So just to tie it back to Jira, of course, very, very tightly, Tempo products in general, very tightly integrated with Jira, and I just wanted to call out some of the things there. So of course, in this case, we have our Tempo teams, right? So in this case, the teams were defined in the Tempo team sections by an admin or senior individual. And in here, this is effectively making the linkage that this team here, the Avengers team, will be working on this epic. And of course, there's additional information as well, things that you would expect, right? Start date, end date, and estimate to be able to effectively plan this thing out and give it some type of horizon and scope of work as well. And this effectively is the Jira issue view here with the additional fields that are used in conjunction with Planner. All right, so moving along, another topic kind of close to this space. Kind of mentioning it because it will definitely come up in questions if I don't, but around shared resources. So we have just a classic example here of a shared resource. So a DBA, right, very classic, not dedicated to a team, but effectively spreading their time across many, if not all of the teams within the organization. So DBA is kind of the classic, architect's another classic example there. So in this case, you could see Brady Davenport on the Avengers team as well as on the Brazil team. And if I listed out more teams here, he would have been on those teams as well. So how can we sort of keep track of this resource working on lots of different teams at the same time? Well, this is the way to do it. You can see here that next to the resource name, indicated as a shared resource, so calling them out. Again, sort of Scrum, typically devs, QAs, dedicated to the team. Certainly at Tempo internally, we have a planner team, we have a cost tracker team, but we also have architects that kind of spread across. We have product managers and product owners that also spread across. So, great examples of shared resources. And in this case, again, by leveraging the Tempo team. So here we see in the Avengers, Brady is working on this mapping exercise, right? This -30 ticket. And we know that scope of work is within the context of the Avengers team. Conversely, on the Brazil team, he's working on technical guidelines for that team. So again, by leveraging the Tempo teams field, we can help visualize this and you can have a better idea. Of course, he's working on both of these two things simultaneously, which is perfectly fine. He knows how to manage his time and his hours. But again, just giving you a visualization in terms of how that effort is spread across multiple teams in this example. All right, so sort of beyond the mock-ups now, hopefully that was enlightening and informative to all of you. Just in terms of release considerations, so I did want to just touch on this because folks always ask, when are things coming out? So again, what I showed in this demonstration will be coming out later this year. And it will be effectively the phase one. So basic planning, typically the use case that we follow internally. So in other words, myself, I know the teams, I know effectively the roadmap, I know the items, so I know the items that we want to get done on the roadmap, and we know the teams that will be working on those things. That's a very classic use case. And moving on to phase two, pertaining more to larger scale organizations. Some of our clients have hundreds of teams, so it's a very, very different use case. I mean, my organization is very tight knit, but if you're working with hundreds of teams, you have some type of initiative that you need to get done in Q3 or Q4. Can the system help you find the best team, right? And that, of course, can be based on many different types of metadata. Just put some examples down there. I absolutely need a superstar in Python to be able to do this delivery, and can the system help me find that person, cross-reference against availability, also can't be in July because he's out on vacation. All of those types of classic challenges we face day to day, coming into the phase two of this functionality. And then again, kind of moving again, more advanced into capacity planning. So really being able to anticipate later in the year, next year, anything kind of in the future, what is the optimal use of these resources, and helping us manage the scarcity of those resources effectively. So just wanted to kind of go through, again, sort of the approach that we're taking here in terms of, maturity of organizations, but also the release of this feature as well. All right, so last slide for me. One thing at Tempo, we have lots of mechanisms to get feedback from the market. In product management and design as well, always very keen on hearing from existing clients, from prospects. Effectively, we will talk to anyone who will take the time to talk to us. So if any of you are interested, we would love to get your input, either on the things I presented today. Certainly the teams is a big focus for us. That it can go fairly wide. So, just discussing your use cases. How do you do team planning? What are the needs? Could be reporting needs. Perhaps you're doing some type of scaled agile, team of teams. What are all of those sort of different needs that you have? So certainly if you are interested, we will reach out and we could set up some conversations around that, and that would be definitely appreciated. So with that, I'm going to pass the floor back to Olaf, and thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. So we're going to go ahead and launch a poll for this so that people can indicate whether they want us to reach out to them or not. With that, we are actually going to go into our Q&A. We'll cover as many questions as we have time for. Let's see if we can start with something fairly easy. Lisa, here's a good question for you. Maybe you can help out our customer. Can I plan 6 months or 1 year into the future using Tempo Planner?
Yes, absolutely. So when you're in Tempo Planner on the resource planning page, on the left, I talked about the date picker. So you can simply select the period of time that you wish to view. On the overview page, you can scroll left to right to see all the weeks in front of you. So the answer is yes, you can plan 6 months in advance using Tempo Planner.
Perfect, thank you. I don't know if Chris or Susan, you want to take this one. Is it possible to plan different types of capacities on resources, on the resource level and connect it? I guess the question is, can you have like different levels of capacity or availability of resources?
I think the answer for that one is no. I mean, it's a little bit difficult to understand the question, but I think it's different capacities based on skill or role or something along that line. So no, at this time, it's really, and Susan, feel free to chime in, but really at this level, it is the capacity of the resource and the entire resource for that individual.
Yes, I believe I have answered that question because there are multiple questions coming up after that was already answered on typing. But just to clarify, when you plan the resource, we have generic resource that you can plan on, let's say, a person that you intend to hire in the future, but you just want to plan ahead of time, then you use generic resource. If you want to plan against a specific skill, we have the skill sets that you can assign to the resource. And then after you got that person hired, then you can transfer all that plan that you have for that generic resource onto the new employee, so that you can really plan ahead without worry that you don't have a placeholder for it. And I hope that answered your question.
Good, thank you both. Chris, do you want to take on, there's a question here about performance. So how fast does a planner work if you have like more than 50 projects, you have 100 tasks per project, and maybe 100 or 200 resources? How does Tempo Planner handle that?
So, I mean, that one I would definitely have to take offline. I mean, I do not have a performance metrics cheat sheet on hand there. So, I mean, that is something that we would definitely feel free to reach out and we can have that conversation around that. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Susan, this is more of a feature question. When importing from Jira issues, what dates does Tempo assign the hours to? Is it based on the start and due date of the issue?
It's actually Tempo does not it does calculate from the due date and back. So let's say your work hour per day is 4 hours and you plan from the due date is on Friday, so and the whole plan is 16 hours, then you will have, when you import the plan will be from Friday all the way up 4 hours per day up to I think Tuesday. So that will be 4 days times 4, that's 16. So that's we use a due date as a calculation to based on your availability to create the plan when you do the import from Jira.
Yeah, okay. Along with the original estimate. So effectively the due date with the estimate, we go backwards. From there. We effectively try to keep it fairly simple. I mean, there's some discussion around having a little bit more configurability and flexibility in that space. So that's something we're looking into as well. But effectively, as Susan was mentioning, due date and then calculating backwards from there.
Great. There's a follow-up question on imports, and maybe Chris, you can talk more broadly about what does the import function do in addition to just the information that comes in with the Jira issue when you start planning on it. What does the import
effectively the idea is, I mean, again, very similar to other products out there. There's AHA and many others, and even our own RoadMonk has very similar feature. So effectively, I mean, it is automatically, I mean, for any plan in Planner, it has to be associated to an issue in Jira. I mean, just due to the tight integration between Tempo products and Jira, right? So effectively, it is taking that Jira ticket and creating a plan for that ticket and making that linkage. So that is the primary mandate there. I mean, of course, and it effectively facilitates, some of the use cases around that. One, certainly don't want a resource manager effectively having to create all of these plans for all of these user stories and all of these resources. Again, today, I mean, there is a prevalence in, self-managed teams, Scrum Agile, those types of things. So those teams are effectively creating those tickets on their own. And, how can we get those tickets into Planner and visualize those? So that's effectively what it is. So there can be new items there. And of course, as I mentioned during the call as well, certain updates that are done there. So if the date were to change, we'll bring that in and adjust on our side as well. So hopefully that answers the question.
Awesome. Thank you. There's a question about the calendar integration. So many people block off time on the calendars to remind them of work to be done, or you want to plan some focus time, and it's not necessarily something that you want to import. Can you filter by type of event on the calendars, or what are the options there? Chris, maybe that's a good one for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, others can certainly chime in. I mean, the idea really behind the planner integration is just to have a better understanding of capacity. Of course, you know, with COVID and you know, many of us have, I would say, overextended calendars, or you know, there's probably more things on the calendar now than ever before in the history of the universe. So the idea there is really to just provide the user a planner to have a better understanding of that. So these are not plans, right? We're not taking a calendar, you know, if you have a meeting from, you know, from 10 to 12, we're not converting that into a plan. That being said, I mean, it does take away 2 hours of your day. So really the idea there, and yes, there is some capabilities to either bring in that feature and to show hide and things like that. But really the idea was to have a better understanding of how that meeting time, you know, plays into actual delivery work. So that was the intent. That was the main intent of the feature. I don't know if Lisa or Susan, if you have any other comments around that.
No, I think you explained the whole idea around that process. But just one more thing to note, that definitely you need to have tempo timesheets and the calendar integrated there first, and in order to use it in Tempo Planner.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Great, thank you both. So there's a question here about which reports are available on cloud versus server. I think I can answer that one. So the planned report is available on both server and cloud, the planned versus actuals as well. However, you do need to be subscribed to Tempo Planner to be able to see the planned reports. And to see the plan versus actuals, you need to have both timesheets and planner available to see them. But both should be available on cloud and server. All right, let's see what else we have here. Here's a very interesting one. So what are the use cases for using Tempo timesheets and Tempo Planner together? First off, it's definitely to be able to get the plan versus actual report. But maybe Chris, you want to comment on that one? Why should someone?
I was actually going to. Funny, I was going to actually pass the floor to our architects, Lisa, on that one. Probably being a little bit closer to home on client use cases than myself.
Sure, I'll take this one. So when a user has Tempo timesheets and Tempo Planner, so let's say a team lead is planning on Bob, and Bob also uses Tempo timesheets. Well, when he goes to his timesheet, he can see the plan cards in the timesheet. This is very helpful because when he looks at his day, he can get an idea of what his lead wants him to work on. And once he gets to that plan for that day, let's say today on Wednesday, Bob can easily, with one click, convert the plan card in his Tempo timesheets, convert it into a time record. So that is how he can accurately show his manager what he worked on for that day. So that is the great part about having both of our apps. They integrate with each other. And on the timesheet as well, Bob can create a plan on his timesheet as a kind of to-do list for himself. And when he creates the plan on the timesheet, it actually also pushes into Tempo Planner. So they both talk to each other, and it can be leveraged in that way. So it's a great to have both.
Absolutely. Agree on that. Susan, there's a technical question here that I think would be good for you. Is it possible to see changes in planning? Is there an alert if someone changes a plan that has already been planned on a user?
A plan? Well, if there's no, there's no alert to show you whether or not that person already had the plan for such an issue, but if you have the permission to plan for that user, then you also will be able to see that what are the other plans that's already done on his calendar, so that you will not plan the duplications, or you will not plan too much time on his days because he will be overworked.
Exactly. All right, thank you. I think we have time for a couple more questions here today. Lisa, maybe you can help out with this one. How can I easily plan a bigger project where you expect more work in certain weeks and less in others?
So if I understand the question, if someone needs to plan on a project level, they can, of course, plan on that by selecting the period of time and the date picker in the future. And then I didn't quite catch the second part of the question.
I think if there's like more work planned in week 1, but then we expect there to be less in week 2, or maybe the second half of the project, we expect there to be less work in the second week than the first one.
Well, I guess from that question, what I'm seeing is in the resource planning overview page, you're able to plan on the particular weeks more hours against your resource and see if they have capacity to take on that work. Whereas on other weeks, you could plan less, and you can see the visual view of it all on the resource planning page. I hope I answered that question.
Great, thank you. I think I'll try to tackle the last question here today. Is there a possibility to not include the calendar in the time planned? I believe that is up to each user. You don't need to sync the calendar if you don't want to. So there are definitely options there for each user, how they want to leverage the calendar integration. And I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions today. It's been wonderful to see everyone here. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you to the presenters, and thank you to Susan for tackling the questions during the session. If anybody wants to reach out to us, has more questions, or want to get a demo from a sales team or start a free trial, you can reach out to us at sales@tempo.io. And for the ones that were willing to participate in our feedback session, we will reach out to you. Please look out for an email. We will send you an email with a recording and the slide deck. But that's it from the Tempo team today. Thank you so much to Lisa and Chris and Susan for presenting and joining here today. Thank you for everyone that attended. Have a great rest of the day, and goodbye.